My name is Alex Aungst, CHS class of 2019. Um, Today's recording is January 12th, 2026, and I'm here. We're here recording in both of our respective homes. And if you don't mind introducing yourself here, I'll let you do the honors.
Sure. So my name is Jackson Brumbaugh, class of 2012 out of Central High School there in Martinsburg. I was a member of the drumline all 4 years in high school, played the quad tenor drums. Um, so happy to be here and eager to share some of my experiences with the Central High Marching Band.
You mentioned, staying all 4 years as part of the marching band. Um, so, like, how did you really get involved? Like, how did you find out about about the marching band?
Sure. So when I was going through elementary school, so in fourth grade, Mr. Delosier was the middle school band director, and he offered lessons through the school for any students who were interested, assuming that the parents could get access to instruments for the students to learn on. And I immediately knew that I wanted to learn how to play the drums. So my mom was able to get me a snare drum, and I would have, I think it was once per week, lessons with Mr. Delosier. I was the only student through the Martinsburg Elementary building. At the time, Spring Coast School District had three elementary schools that then funneled to a shared middle school and high school. So I did, one-on-one drumming lessons with Mr. Delosier all of fourth grade year, all of fifth grade year, and then went into concert band in middle school, again under the direction of Mr. Delosier. And I believe once each Memorial Day parade, the middle school band was permitted to play with the high school marching band to kind of get you a small taste of what marching in a parade was like. Admittedly, I'm not much of a parade marcher. Parades are not really my fancy, but just the opportunity to play. It was kind of like old Civil War style. Like we had the strap to just clipped to like a concert snare. Like it was not even a good marching snare at all. Um, but it was just a taste of what marching band was like. And I can remember being, and I believe seventh grade, the tail end of my seventh grade year, because Memorial Day is towards the end of the school year. Mr. Rainey, who was the director of the high school band and marching band at the time, he was letting me and some of my other classmates in the marching in the middle school band. So some of the other drummers that, hey, we're maybe going to try to pull eighth graders up to the high school marching band next year if you guys would be interested. The drum line could really use some help. So my year was really strong when it came to drummers. There was me, there was who all did we have? There was Levi and AJ, Mike, and Jeremy. So we were a really strong group of drummers coming through the class of 2012. And so it ultimately never happened where we weren't able to pull the eighth graders up into the marching band. I've heard that since they do have where middle schoolers can play in the high school marching band, which I think is a really great opportunity. At least I hope that is what I've heard that's accurate. Um,
They well, I was like I believe my sophomore junior year they changed that.
Gotcha. And so here we are in 2026. I'm hoping, the 2025 marching band season is over, but now we're kind of looking forward to the next marching band season in 2026 for the 2026-2027 school year. Hopefully that will continue in eighth graders, or I don't even know if seventh graders, just because it increases the size of the band. And as with anything, when it comes to band, the more players tends to be better quality, just because you can have people that can pick up the slack and whatnot. But then, so when I entered ninth grade and was finally in Central High, I immediately signed up for the marching band, knew that I wanted to play the drums, and it just so happened that as I was entering marching band for the high school, the previous quad player had graduated. Her name was Megan. Megan actually went on to be our percussion instructor my freshman year. She went on to get her music educator's degree. I don't know. I think she's teaching somewhere. I don't know where. Um, but I took over her spot as the solo quad player because when I was in marching band all 4 years, it was a solo quad position. From seeing some of the band this past year, I've noticed that there are two quad drummers. So that's kind of cool to see that now the drum line is getting so big that they actually have two quad players. So that's how I first got involved with the marching band, was just the introduced to me via the Memorial Day parade, and then once I entered high school, was able to become a member of the drumline myself.
Was there anything um, about the director, about Mr. Rainey, that kind of alerted you? Did you have any experience with Mr. Rainey like before joining marching band, or was it some? Did you have any sort of impression?
So my first impression of Mr. Rainey, and I'm pretty sure it was him. It might have been somebody else, but I think it was possibly his first year was my sixth grade year, maybe. So I'm trying to think what year that would have been. So I would have finished sixth grade in 2006. So that would have been 2005 when I started middle school in the Spring Cove School District. And Mr. Delosier had wanted to test whether I could handle playing the timpani drums, the kettle drums, for a concert band piece. And I can remember what I'm pretty sure was Mr. Rainey, very wet behind the ears as like a fresh music teacher, director, kind of giving me a quick rundown of what the timpani drums were like. Because at that point, I'd only ever played snare, when we were doing lessons in fourth and fifth grade. So I'm pretty sure that was my first interaction with Mr. Rainey, where he was showing me, okay, you have the pedal here, which will change the pitch of the drum, so you can make the drum sound higher, you can make the drum sound lower, and then you have this special mallet that's like a giant cotton ball at the end of it. Not a giant cotton ball, but a medium-sized cotton ball for anybody who's played timpani drums or seen timpani drums be played. And then he was showing me how when you hit the drum, you kind of want to hit it like on a snare drum. You don't want to hit it too close to the center; it'll be a dead sound. You don't want to hit it too close to the rim because it won't be loud enough. So you want to find that Goldilocks middle zone of not too close to the center, not too close to the edge. So that was my first interaction with Mr. Rainey, assuming that is a correct memory. But other than that, no, it was just getting into high school and having him be both my concert band director and my marching band director, and getting to know him that way of being you know we didn't have section leaders when I was in marching band all 4 years, but you kind of had de facto section leaders just because you knew who was maybe the strongest player. And being the solo quad player, I think I kind of was maybe the sort of the de facto leader of my drum line. Not as like a freshman and sophomore, but I think as some of the older classes were graduating away, and when I was in like my junior and senior year, I was more kind of purview to the inner circle of like going back into Mr. Rainey's office and getting to see some of the discussions about what shows we were going to be doing next year. As the school year died down, the talks of what the next year's marching band show is going to be. So I always had a good impression of Mr. Rainey. He was very, very personable, very likable. I think he was very talented musically. So that's definitely what comes to my mind when I think of Mr. Rainey. Or there was another very fond memory. He performed for Cove's Got Talent that him and the choir director Janelle Parker had organized, and he did the song. There's an original from his band called Spoon Chatter. You can actually find it on Spotify, or I think even on YouTube Music. It was a song called Einstein, and this just sort of goes to show you just how much of like an earworm it is. Like to this day, here we are. Let's say I heard that maybe when I was 15 or 16 years old, and I'm 32 now. So like 17 years later, I can still remember like the melody line to that song Einstein.
Now, you mentioned something about like not really having any sort of section leaders at the time of the band. Would you would there still be like certain people that would take charge? And if it was like smaller sections, would there be like span several different you know instrument groups? Like would you, as like say the quads, would you go and like be the leader of like other drums, or like maybe even of certain wood of wind instruments, like something of that nature?
So when we were in band camp, so we would have about a week and a half long band camp before the school year started. So right around like the second week of August, band camp would begin. And with the drum line, I can always remember we had a percussion instructor, or at least I know, like I had mentioned, Megan was our percussion instructor, I think for at least my freshman year. She might have also been for our sophomore year. So when we broke off into sectionals, Megan was the one who took charge and helped. She was the one who would click on the Glock for us to keep time as a metronome, would kind of say, "Hey guys, we're going to go over this piece. We're going to go over this section of the piece. We're going to work on this." And she'd be the one kind of working with the bass line or with snares if they were kind of having trouble. Or of course, with any kind of high schoolers, you can imagine there's some tomfoolery going on and difficulty focusing. So it was sort of her job to rein us in and keep us focused. But I want to say my like junior and senior year, we didn't even have a percussion instructor. It was just sort of a, hey, we're going to break into sectionals, and it was just organized chaos as to whether work was actually being done. I can remember a lot of, I believe it was a game called Ninja being played. I don't know if you guys kept that tradition alive because, like you said, you were class of what, 2019, I think, Alex, you said?
Yep. Yep.
So
And I do remember that game.
yeah, so you'd have where the goal was to karate chop somebody else's either hand or wrist to remove that arm from play, and then you would take turns going around the circle, and it was, a very fun game to be played. Something I haven't played since my senior year in high school, so that would be now 14 years ago. But that definitely sticks out as, we would break off into sectionals, and when we should have been practicing, I think there's one particular individual, Adam. He was a bass drummer. He was quite the character. You never really could tell what sort of random nonsense would come forth from his mouth. He would just, anything that came to mind, he would say. And I can remember, like, at one point he must have found it online because I don't think this is original of him. We're sitting there at practice, and he just randomly raises his hand, and so Mr. Rainey's like, "All right, what you got for us, Adam?" And Adam's like, "Well, hey, if tomatoes are a fruit, does that make ketchup a smoothie?" And that, of course, nowadays is like an internet meme. But at the time, I think he had found it before anybody else had, at least within the Central High Marching Band. So we're all like, "Whoa, dude! Like, what are you? Where did you get that piece of information?" But that was just kind of the type of person Adam was. So we'd be going off into sectionals, and he'd be like organizing like a quick game of Ninja instead of actually playing, or he'd be, like chatting away when we should have been practicing. So there was definitely just, no, I wouldn't even call it organized chaos. It was just pure chaos when you don't have a percussion instructor to really rein in the raw energy of high schoolers on a drum line.
Would Mr. Rainey ever get strict about that? Would he say no games at this time, or
No,
would there ever be a
so
time?
I don't even know what he was up to. So like when we would break off into like woodwinds, brass, drumline, I don't even know because I don't even really remember him like popping his head in on the drumline. I think we typically would go over to either the choir room or on stage as our little practice section. Because typically like a typical band camp day, if I remember correctly, would be field practice in the morning before the sun got too hot, and then we would maybe do field practice for like 2 or 3 hours. We would come down off the hill, because you would go up kind of like where, like across like catty corner from Bean Hill. So you'd walk up the hill, you do field practice, um, or you do like drill practice to kind of get your 8 to 5 steps in. Because the first day or two you have to kind of get the rookies up to speed. Your freshmen, they don't know what 8 to 5 is. They don't. You're trying to teach them roll stepping, so you're trying to like basically get them the basics. And so for the upperclassmen, your sophomores, your juniors, your seniors, it was kind of like an easy day or two where you're just going through the motions of having to repeat all of that fundamental basics. And then, so we would do 2 to 3 hours of up on the hill. We'd come down, we'd have lunch, and then, or I think we would do sectionals for maybe like an hour before lunch. And then after lunch, I think we would go back up on the hill. And then we would come back down off the hill, and we would come together as an entire band to like run through, we're going to do the first movement as a band. Let's, start it from the top. Let's see how far we can get. So that was like a typical band camp day for my 4 years of marching band. So when we broke off into sectionals, Mr. Rainey like never even really popped his head in during that like 1 or 2 hours when we were doing sectionals. I don't know if maybe he was popping his head in or leading maybe like the brass or the woodwind section, or even, I don't know. So who would have been the conductors so my freshman year, it was a young lady named Genevieve. I think Genevieve, that was just my freshman year. And I think my sophomore year, um, he was a drummer. I don't even think he wasn't even a drum. He never even joined drumline. Rainey was able to pull him in as the marching band director or conductor my at least definitely junior and senior year. I don't remember if he did sophomore year. A guy named Levi. So Levi did concert band and definitely did concert choir. So he was very involved in the music program. And in fact, I think Levi went on to get his music educator's degree. I don't know what he's up to these days. He's a bit of a recluse, not very active on like Facebook or anything. So I don't really know I don't even know where Levi's living these days. But Levi took over as the conductor of the band as lead for at least my junior and senior year. So I don't know if like I think he and Rainey just kind of would go back into the office and discuss whatever, like kind of touch base, like what do we want to focus on this afternoon, where are things at. Levi was the conductor of the band junior senior year. I can't remember now for the life of me. It might have been Genevieve. No, Genevieve. I'm certain she was a senior my freshman year, so I can't even think of who led the band my sophomore year. So it would have been the graduating class of whether that had been 2009, because that would have been my cousin Morgan's senior year. Who would have maybe been? Yeah, now it's really bothering me because I want to try to remember who was band director, the band conductor for that year. But yeah, so I don't know what they did because I was just focused on my own part in the band. I was focused on playing quads. So, and I don't remember yet ever Mr. Rainey popping his head in or being strict. Like Mr. Rainey was very chill, very laid back. Like, hey, as long as we're on pace to put a show on Friday nights, or we would have friends and family night before the first football game. Like, as long as we were on pace to have that, he didn't seem to care. He was very very much for having fun, being laid back. Like I think he recognized you guys are in high school. This is meant to be a for fun activity. Let's have some fun.
How was like the ratio between like what for stand tunes would it be? Would it just be like, regular like stock like pop, songs or?
It was a pretty interesting mix. I know he definitely pulled from like some Madden songs because I can remember there was one song that stands out to me, Alive and Amplified was a stand tune that we did, and I used to play a lot of Madden 2005 when I was in high school. And I know that was on the soundtrack for Madden '05. So I at times would hear Mr. Rainey talking to some other students about, being, loading up Madden, playing Madden. So I think he pulled some inspiration for his stand tunes from that. I remember we did a few classical pieces. So like I remember Mars, Bringer of War. We did that song, so which was really cool because it's in 5/4. So you have the da 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 da. So we had a little bit of classical in our stand tunes. We had the drumline only drum break piece of Jungle Beat was definitely a common stand tune. We would have, I don't know if it was in my freshman year, but at least by junior senior year, we had what we called our third down, or were they first down shorts or third down? We had shorts where they would only be maybe 8 to 12 measure snippets, and so he would kind of like he would hold up, hey, we're gonna do shorts number 3, and so you just had to know that was whatever. I'd have to go back and try to find the sheet music as to what I think there was at least 6 stand tune short, like first down shorts, because we were only permitted to play at certain times when the football team was on the field. One of those was just after I'm pretty sure they were called first down shorts. So he would say, like, hey, we're just gonna do from the top. Every time the football team gets a first down, we're gonna do first down short number 1, and then number 2, and then number 3. And like I said, they were just short little snippets, like 8 to maybe 16 measures tops. And Mr. Rainey, he actually would take the time and he would arrange a lot of our stand tune music himself. So a lot of it was not purchased music. He would like all of our, like I think all of the marching band shows that I marched in, 8th or 9th through 12th grade were all Mr. Rainey arrangements. So he might have bought one. He might have purchased some of the one and show, but a lot of it was I can remember we'd be at like district choir or district band, and he'd be in his free time, he'd be on his laptop on whatever music editing software he had, and he would be writing the show for that following season's marching band arrangement.
Did you play frequently between downs? Did you ever have the opportunity, or was it or to be pretty silent at times?
No, Mr. Rainey tried to keep us as much as within the rules of high school football would allow. He would try to keep us active. We would play between quarters. We got third quarter off, so the rule was like you had to be back. I think when the clock hit like 2 minutes or at least a minute remaining in the third quarter, so that the quarter break between the third and fourth, we could play a longer piece there. During timeouts, we would play like a longer piece. Like that'd be like when we would try to squeeze in like Alive and Amplified or Louie Louie. I'm trying to remember what some of our other stand tunes were. We had like Louie Louie, Alive and Amplified. Um, what were some of our others? I can't. Well, I think we did. We had Mars. No, Mars was just a short, first down short. We didn't have like a long form version of that. There was the final countdown was typically as the game was nearing its end, as the fourth quarter was ticking away. Like I think around like the 2 minute warning, we would play the final countdown. Obviously, there was the fight song for the Sprinko fight song, which, if I remember correctly, I think Mr. Rainey arranged the fight song that we did under his direction. He had like pieced it together, sort of some inspiration of some collegiate fight songs that he knew of. He drew on those as inspiration. So yeah, Mr. Rainey was a very creative type, and he wanted to use like his own self-arranged music when it came to his direction and his leadership of the marching band. So yeah, we would try to play as much as possible, again within the rules and guidelines of whatever the fancy acronym is for high school football.
Now tell me more about that. Is that where the current fight song, is that where Scarlet Fever came from?
I believe Scarlet Fever was a Mr. Rainey arrangement. Yeah. Yeah, like da 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 da. If that's Scarlet Fever, that was a Mr. Rainey arrangement. Or I
Yeah,
hesitate to say
that
original.
is
Huh? Yeah, okay.
alongside, obviously playing Scarlet Fever a bunch of times, after touchdowns. Uh, were there any other pieces, other pieces that you remember fondly that during your time with the band, under Mr. Rainey?
So Jungle Beat was definitely there was some pressure when I took over playing with quads to learn, and I think Jungle Beat is still a thing. Sorry, yeah, I'm all the nostalgia is coming back. So when I took over my freshman year, because I had not been in the marching band to kind of have a sense of which songs were important, what they were supposed to sound like, and so there I was as a freshman and just kind of given piece after piece after piece. Here, learn this. Here, you have to learn this. Here, you have to learn that. In fact, it was so much like that. I don't know if you guys still did it when you were at the like kind of the end of year party or like get together. We did what were called the paper plate awards. So it was the duty of the seniors to assign a paper plate award to each member of the band. And so my freshman year, the paper plate award that I was given was the Here You Go award, or Here It Is award, which the meaning behind that was it's, any piece that they threw at me, they just said, Here you go. And I was able to handle it. So like when they threw, what was my freshman year's show? I was just trying to get the timeline there on the Facebook post. It was the Beatles. So my freshman year was the Beatles show, and because Mr. Rainey arranged it, and he maybe didn't know where I was going to fall skill level wise on quads, like I don't remember it being a very difficult show, but it was just the fact of here I was as a freshman, never having to learn, between 8 to 10 minute, set list of marching band music, plus the stand tunes, plus parade music, plus anything else. So I guess I impressed at least the upperclassmen, the seniors, so they felt like I was treated as the here you go, here's another piece of music, and I was able to handle it. So I was awarded the Here You Go paper plate award. Did you guys happen to do paper plates when you were going through school?
I definitely remember something like that.
Something like
We definitely did like paper plate at least 1 or 2 years. They might have continued after that, but I can't recall.
You're good. So there was a lot of music floating around. When it came to like stand tunes and everything. Um, I forgot what exactly was your question. I think I went. Oh, you were saying, yeah. So at the end of like in touchdowns and stuff. So yeah, we would play typically Scarlet Fever. But when I was in high school, our football team was pretty good. We had regular playoff game, like playoffs were a thing for us. So we actually got to play more than just the 10 game regular season rotation. So there would be games where we'd be racking up 30, 40, 50 points on a game. And so Mr. Rainey, instead of wanting to do just Scarlet Fever, the fight song every time, we would maybe do like Jungle Beat or pick Louie Louie. Like we would pick other songs to do at the, after a touchdown. So I can remember, yeah, like there'd be times where Jungle Beat would be a thing where we would typically do, twice through at normal speed, and then I would jump it to like double speed, double time for like the third time through, and that would usually pump up the crowd. I was always excited to see just how fast I could push it, and it was always fun to see the excitement of like the student section or even just members of the band when they would be like, go faster, go faster, go faster.
You've graduated 2012. Afterwards, what did you do with the band after?
So following my graduation in 2012, I was fortunate enough to come back and serve as percussion instructor for at least 3, maybe 4 years, I believe it was. So at the time, I was uh, dating somebody that was the year behind me, and so being the percussion instructor was a way to kind of hang out with her while I was about to head off to college, and she was going to still be in high school. But also too, just even though I wasn't going into a music education program, I actually went to college initially for an engineering degree, and then eventually got my bachelor's in mathematics. So nowhere close to music related whatsoever. Music has always been a passion of mine, a very huge hobby. It's a core piece to my life. So being able to come back and volunteer as a percussion instructor was definitely a time I look back on fondly, and then get to really see some of the leadership side of like being in charge when it comes to you're not just playing in the band, you're literally leading the band. And thankfully, I mean, I guess I did a decent enough job there my first year out of band that they brought me back for, like I said, for a second and third season to be the percussion instructor. And it was also cool just to then, being a percussion instructor, you start looking at the band a much different way. When you're a member of the band, you're focused on like how do you sound? At least that's where my head went, was like how did I perform? How did my little piece of the puzzle go? But whenever you have to take a step back and you're an instructor for the band, now you have to look at it as a collective. How does the whole band sound? And so it was interesting to kind of see then, like, would so and so make sense more? Like, can so and so handle being a snare drummer, or they maybe could they handle being a bass drummer? Like, I don't want to say that bass drums are easier than snare drums, because there's definitely a skill involved when you're on a bass line, because how you sound is dependent on how the other members of the bass line do, because you have to kind of like, there's more timing involved. When I was a solo quad player, it was all up to me. Like, if I sounded poorly, then that was on me. If I sounded good, it was on me. But as a bass, if you remember the bass line, you're dependent on 2 or 3 or 4 other people to have it sound good. And especially when you were doing like baseline runs, you have to be able to almost predict when your beat was going to happen. So I totally give kudos and props to bass drum players. I don't think I could have handled having that kind of like interconnected dependence on somebody, because as a snare drummer, then you're trying to sound like one sound, so there's the skill involved of being a snare drummer. So when I was the instructor and having to kind of piece together, should so and so be a snare drummer, should so and so be a bass drummer, okay, if he's on the bass line, should he be bass 1, bass 2, bass 3, the biggest bass drum, could he the smaller bass drum? So getting to see some of those, the nitty gritty decisions that have to be made, was really eye opening, and gave me a better perspective and appreciation for what Mr. Rainey had to do as director of the band. Because when I was just a member of the band playing, those decisions obviously were outside my purview. I was not privy to them, and it never would have crossed my mind to be like, why did Jeremy get picked as a snare drummer versus Mike, who got put on bass, or why was why did Nick get on cymbals instead of, why wasn't he, why didn't he get to play snare drum? And I don't know how it is nowadays, but we were kind of told, hey, this is the instrument, this is the drum that you're playing on the line. You can kind of like request and say, hey, I want to maybe branch out to this, but it was more so like you were kind of told, like, this is what you're playing. Are you okay with that?
That transition from the end of Rainey's tenure to like the start of kind of like this little transition period between it would go to Rainey, then Trenn for a short bit, and then to Mr. Drum. How was that time like in that transition?
So I don't believe I ever was percussion instructor for Mr. Drum. I believe that my last year as percussion instructor was under Mr. Trenn. And I vaguely recall Mr. Trenn. I think his tenure was only 1 year, maybe two. You might be better.
Yeah, I only recall 1 or 2 years.
Yeah. So I don't remember if it was exactly one or two, but I can just remember there's a stark difference in direction and style. Like Mr. Rainey definitely liked to encourage a sense of fun and a sense of enjoyment, and understood that it was a for fun hobby that the members of the marching band that were there for. But Mr. Trenn, I felt like his approach was more like he was trying to be friends with everybody in the band instead of be the director and be a leader. Not to speak ill of a former director, but I definitely would say that Rainey was better suited to be a director. I think Mr. Trenn maybe had potential to be a good band director given time, but I don't know if he was ready to be the head of be the lead director of a marching band at that time in his career.
So like after marching band, like how did you feel like it had an impact in your life? Post marching band, gain.
So marching band, one, it's music has always been a source of like relaxation or a way to refocus me. Playing, specifically playing music, whether it be playing nowadays, I'm not a member of a marching band, or like, I know locally in Altoona there's the Keystone Regiment, which is a drum and bugle corps, so I'm not a member of any organized music group, but I have I have an electronic drum kit at home. I have my keyboard, so I'm still actively playing music as a way to de-stress, to relax and unwind. But also, like, music taught me that a sense of discipline, and to achieve a goal you have to be willing to work hard and practice, all valuable skills that I've applied in my professional path. Like I said, I've mentioned I went for an engineering degree fresh out of high school. I ended up getting 2 associate degrees in engineering technology. I then went on and got a bachelor's in mathematics. So, disciplines that you have to be so areas of study that you have to be very disciplined in when it comes to, the areas of study. Engineering and mathematics tend to be, a little more rigorous, not for everybody. So having that experience of knowing what goal you're working towards and why the practice is important, and having to put in the work to get the output that you want, are some lessons that I carry through from my time in marching band. And then the leadership side, being able to come back and be percussion instructor, and being able to start seeing more of the forest through the trees, was really beneficial too, because there have been times in my professional career where I've had to kind of step up and be a leader, whether it be like, hey, this project needs to get done, someone has to take charge of it. Or I've worked in jobs where I was the only one working in a particular area. So I've worked as a software developer for a company in Hollidaysburg, and so I was the only one who really would work on some of the Microsoft Power Package platforms that we were using as a business. So again, kind of like working solo. So going from like a solo quad drummer, being the only percussion instructor for the band, like those roles of leadership, and kind of, in a sense, I don't want to say accountability because I wasn't being accountable for it, but like knowing that I was the only one responsible for how the quad sounded. I was the one responsible then for how the drum line sounded as percussion instructor. Just gave me that renew. Just really helped give me the confidence to know that when it came to being the lead software person for our, the power package at at my job, just helped like fill me with that confidence to know that I could handle it, that I could do it. So yeah, like marching band, and even to that degree, concert band and music was so pivotal to me. And I look back on it, and there's countless lessons. Some of them kind of funny, some of them trivial, but a lot of really core fundamental principles that I learned that I thank, Mr. Delosier and Mr. Rainey and some of the other, music people, and Mrs. Brumbaugh from middle school. Even though I didn't do middle school choir, I did a middle school musical, and then Mrs. Parker in high school, I did choir in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. So the people that I look back on as my music instructors, my music directors, had a huge influence in my life, and I'm so grateful that I was able to go through the Spring Cove music program, and I hope that those lessons are still being instilled in the students today.
Well, Jackson, I want to thank you so much for donating your time here, and sharing this opportunity to talk about your experience with the band. Um, uh, so we're just going to conclude here. So I really appreciate it.